In 1924, in a train station in Tokyo, a dog named Hachikō waited for his owner to come home from work. His owner had died that day. Suddenly, at the university where he thought he was never coming back, Hachiko waited anyway. He returned to that exact spot at the exact time the train arrived every single day for 9 years, until he died there, still waiting. And the question nobody asked at the time is the one that actually matters. Did he know he'd been left? Did some part of him understand that the person wasn't coming back and he just couldn't accept it? Or did he genuinely not understand at all? And that's somehow worse. Do animals know when they've been abandoned? Not that you're late, not that you stepped out, but that you're gone and you chose to be. Let's start with what's happening inside their body, because it's more specific than people think. When you leave an animal that's bonded to you, dogs show a spike in cortisol, the stress hormone. Their heart rate climbs, they pace, they vocalize toward the door you walked out of. But that reaction fades if you come back on a normal schedule. The body learns the pattern. Leave, return, leave, return. It becomes safe. Abandonment is different. Abandonment is when the pattern breaks, when the return never comes, and the animal is left holding a prediction the world refuses to fulfill. In 2011, researchers studying shelter dogs documented something they called the waiting behavior. Newly surrendered dogs, dogs whose owners had dropped them off and driven away, showed a specific sequence. First, searching, going to the gate, watching the door, alert to every sound. Then, after days, a shift. The searching stops. The dog goes quiet, withdrawn, stops eating with the same interest, stops greeting. Shelter workers have a word for it. They call it shutting down, and it mirrors something we recognize in ourselves. The searching, then the silence. Hope, then the absence of it. But a skeptic would stop us right here, and they'd be right too. Maybe it's not abandonment they're processing, maybe it's just the absence of a reward. The food stopped coming from that hand, the warmth left, except that doesn't explain the loyalty, because if it were only about rewards, the animal would move on. It would attach to whoever feeds it next. The new hand, the new warmth, and some do, but many don't. Hachiko was fed by dozens of people at the station for 9 years. He was never hungry. He still waited for the one who was gone. That's not a reward response. A reward response takes the food and forgets the face. This was something else. Something that looks a lot like missing a specific individual or not a function, a someone. Elephants make this even harder to dismiss. When a member of a herd is taken, captured, sold, the herd does not move on. They call for days. They return to the place of separation, and the captured elephant does the same. There are documented cases of elephants who showed signs of depression for months, sometimes years, after being taken from their family. Reduced movement, reduced eating. A stillness vets describe not as illness, but as grief. These are animals that remember faces for decades, that recognize the bones of their own dead, that comfort each other in distress. When you take one and it never sees the others again, something in it appears to know. But here's where it gets harder to look at, because there's a difference between an animal that was lost and an animal that was left. Do they know it was a choice? When you drive away from a shelter, does the dog watching through the fence understand that you decided this? that you could have stayed and didn't? We can't ask them, but we have clues, and the clues are uncomfortable. Dogs are extraordinarily good at reading human intention. They follow our pointing better than chimpanzees do. They track our gaze. They read whether we're paying attention before they disobey. They know the difference between you accidentally dropping food and you deliberately withholding it. That's been tested. They react differently to each. So an animal that reads intention, that finally, watching you pack a bag, watching you load a car, watching you hand the leash to a stranger, it's hard to argue that none of it registers. Maybe they know more than we want them to. Maybe that's why it's so hard to look at the face of an animal you're leaving. Because somewhere underneath, you suspect it understands. But here's the honest part. Even with all of this, the cortisol, the waiting, the shutting down, we still can't get inside the experience and know what it feels like from in there. We can measure that they search. We can measure that they stop. We can document the loyalty that makes no biological sense. What we can't feel is what Hachikō felt on the 2000th day, walking back to the same spot for a person who was never going to step off that train. Whether it was hope, whether it was confusion, whether it was just love with nowhere left to go. We don't know, and the not knowing should make us gentler, not more certain. There's one more thing worth sitting with. The animals most likely to be abandoned are the ones most capable of bonding. Dogs, cats, horses, the exact species that evolved alongside us, that learned to read us, that attached to us specifically because we asked them to. We spent thousands of years breeding animals to love us, to need us, to wait at the door, to choose us over their own kind. And then we built a world where leaving them became easy. That's the part that should stay with you. Not whether they understand abandonment the way we do, but that we created the capacity for it, we built the bond, we made them able to miss us. And missing someone is just love that's been left behind. There's a final detail about Hachikō most people don't know. After he died, scientists examined his body. They were curious whether something physical had kept him there. A damaged brain, some malfunction that explained 9 years of waiting. They found nothing wrong with him. He wasn't broken, he wasn't confused, he was, by every measure they could find, a completely healthy dog who simply chose to keep waiting for someone who loved him, long after anyone else would have stopped. Maybe he didn't understand death. Maybe he didn't understand abandonment as a concept. But he understood something. He understood that one specific person was supposed to come back, and he was willing to spend his entire life being right about that, even when he was wrong, whether that's instinct or loyalty or something we don't have a word for yet. It outlasted the man it was meant for, and it's still there, cast in bronze at that station, where a dog waits for a train that came in every day but one. I hope you enjoyed this one, and remember, stay curious.